The Democratic Alliance in Gauteng says the Commission of Inquiry established to probe the cause of the Marshalltown fire that left more than 70 people dead is in fact not enough. The inquiry will be led by retired Constitutional Court Justice Sisi Khampepe, and the party is demanding that the terms of reference for that inquiry be widened by the Premier. We're joined this morning by the DA's Mervyn Cirota for more on the story. Mervyn, it's great to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed for coming on. And I've got in front of me here what the DA says the inquiry should also be looking at, and it's quite wide in your party's opinion.
Yes, good morning to everyone. As you know, there is an existential crisis in the city of Johannesburg. We are on a time bomb waiting for a catastrophe to happen. One of the fundamental problems, and if one looks away from the fire but at the bigger picture, is the infrastructural collapse in the city. If you do walkabouts, and I went on a walkabout yesterday to inspect the pipes, and the days before inspecting the hijacked and abandoned buildings and overcrowded buildings, there's a much bigger problem than simply the fire. And the Commission seems to be focused solely on the causes for the fire and the hijacked buildings. There's a much bigger picture, and we are in a real crisis situation. I am very concerned that if we don't take immediate steps, we as a party are concerned, immediate steps to look into the greater problem of infrastructural decay. The city underground is falling apart. The buildings are in a state of decay and disrepair, and there doesn't seem to be a plan. And this commission, although it is welcomed and deals with specific issues, we believe it should deal with underlying issues of infrastructural decay, the reasons for overcrowding, like porous borders, undercapacitated officials, and areas that impact on the city as a whole.
It's very interesting what the Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi had to say this week in announcing the terms of reference for the inquiry. He says the inquiry was established to avoid political interference in the investigation into that Marshalltown disaster. What do you think he means by that, Mervyn?
I'm quite happy to agree with that. There doesn't have to be political interference, but whoever's dealing with the issue needs to understand very clearly, and these judges need to understand very clearly what their terms of reference are. We don't want to have a situation where we get a report which raises more questions than answers, and we believe that's why it should be extended to prevent a restrictive report and encompasses all areas, particularly on the nature of the time bomb that we're sitting on. We really do have a crisis, and we need to be looking at issues which are really problematic and need immediate attention. Right,
and part of what the DA is saying is that the terms of reference should include a number of other issues, as you say, porous and uncontrolled borders, corruption by public representatives, incompetent or incapacitated officials. It feels to me, Mervyn, that this needs to be, at least on the basis of what the DA is proposing, a much wider inquiry into the state of affairs of the city of Johannesburg.
Absolutely. That's exactly what we're saying. We need this to encompass every area relating to why the city is in the state that it is. If we keep it narrow, as this commission appears to be instructed to do, we're not going to get to the nub and real issue that needs to be attended to, and we'll simply be in 6 months or a year's time exactly the same position where we are now. Also is of concern that the Premier doesn't seem to have any plan to deal with the problem in the short term. What are we going to be doing about potential of other fires, of potential for other explosions, and what is being done to assist all those residents that are potentially in a position where they can lose their lives, and no plans are being done to sort out that problem?
Yeah, well, actually, what I was saying is an inquiry completely separate to the Marshalltown fire, because, you know, everything that you've been describing, just the state of affairs in the city of Johannesburg, the amount of decay that we see not only in the city but in many other parts of the city as well. That seems to be a separate inquiry on its own. Yes, it does feed into perhaps what happened in Marshalltown, but it should be separate, surely.
It can be separate, but it can be an extension. We don't mind as long as the issue is dealt with. Because you've now raised the issue, of course, of the living conditions in the hostels on the periphery of Johannesburg, which is horrific. That's another catastrophe awaiting to happen. People should not be living in those conditions. So whether it's merely an extension of the existing commission or another commission, we would be quite happy, but something needs to be done.
Look, I'm not going to, suggest commissions, because I do think that a part of South Africans as well are quite tired of the term commissions of inquiry, right? Just given our track record insofar as real change once the commission has finished its work and issued its report and made its recommendations. On that basis, what's your hope will come out of this commission looking into the Marshalltown fire?
Well, it's a step-by-step approach, and I understand and I hear what you're saying. We've had many commissions and many problems have not been solved as a result of the recommendations. It's a question of getting a commission with the right terms of reference, looking into the matter, making the right recommendations, and then ensuring that there is a proper implementation of those recommendations.
So at this stage, Mervyn, given what the Democratic Alliance is proposing insofar as just expanding the terms of reference of this commission, or, as you're saying, doing an extended commission of inquiry that's linked to this one, is this something that you could still put on the table and that could still be implemented?
Yes, I think so. We've got to do something, and the powers that the Premier has in terms of 127 of the Constitution allows him to do this. So it's a step, and it's a first step. We further need to look into all the underlying causes for decay in the city, for the living conditions in the city, and to stop the city from becoming an African slum rather than a first-class, first-world African city. And time is of the essence, and we're running out of it.
Yeah, and many other people are in very similar buildings in the inner city, facing the same hazards that those who died in the Marshalltown fire faced as well. Mervyn, Cirota, let me thank you for your time this morning. The Democratic Alliance weighing in there on the terms of reference for that inquiry announced by the Gauteng Premier, saying that it should in fact be extended to look into all the issues that fed into what happened in that Marshalltown fire.